thought
Christmas
we'd get
time.
on. Yeah, woo, Christmas time, it's coming. And we thought, well, fuck, here we are, like debunking every single thing that's ever been like programmed in us. And of course, the biggest celebration of everyone's year, basically, definitely in the Western world and spread across the whole realm, is this thing called Christmas. So we thought we'd have a bit of a deep dive on what Christmas actually looked at through the Tartarian lens. And it's a really interesting one, Cambell, isn't it? Because now as soon as you look at it for 5 minutes, you get involved with psychedelics, Satan, demons, evil entities, child-eating monsters, and this coherent timeline that is up against everything we know in Tartaria as being incorrect. So where do we even start? Where did you start your search on Christmas and Tartaria?
There's so many. I mean, the obvious starting point is Saint Nicholas. That's what we're given. He was a saint, and he walked around in Santa clothes with a Santa hat on, and that's where the whole red and white came from. Or so they say. And he's also supposedly the one who started giving out gifts to the poor. But when you look into Christmas, you find that, I mean, first, it's very multi-layered. It's definitely an amalgamation of a lot of things, but it's definitely not what we're taught it is. It's definitely not what Disney tell us it is. And the other thing is, it's not as old as we think it is. It's actually a pretty recent sort of invention, shall we say, or introduction.
Yeah.
And we sort of have this concept that it's got a lineage back to Jesus, right? To the birth, and it's been that. No. That's not the truth. So so I mean, Saint Nicholas, and then when you get into Saint Nicholas, you pretty quickly you're reading about magic mushrooms and about Krampus, the child-eating demon, and it's like maybe Christmas is not what we thought it is. And we know they do this with everything, right? Especially rituals, though. So they get us to all put in our energy, and we think we're putting it into something good, but in the end, the idols and everything, the symbols we're putting the energy into are all not what we think they are.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting with Christmas, because you're right, like it does form this timeline that really like is very similar to all the other timelines we're given throughout history to give us a sense of history, basically. And when you look at Christmas, it's a fundamental programming of our time. The Great Reset basically launched with Christmas. Now we're going to do a bit of an interest live on the spot search through the World Trade Fairs, because obviously we know that the majority of content that the world was going to adopt, whether it be food or technology or fashion or whatever, came through those World Trade Fairs sort of in the late 1800s. And I'd be very interested to see what comes up when we look at those plus Christmas, because if we understand we've undergone a great reset, which has been basically a mind reset, and within that, whatever got reintroduced was absolutely by design. And when we look at Christmas, every single element of Christmas rituals is so symbolic. The wreaths, the mistletoe, the Yule log, the Christmas trees, the colors, the flying creatures. Like I even saw something in regards to the flying reindeer that originally that came from snakes, flying snakes with wings. So like we can basically go through everything. Yeah. So we will actually bring a timeline to all of this. We've got some things, but like one of the very first things that struck me, which I've not heard before, Cambell, was the fact that the Christmas tree is a symbolic representation of the Tower of Babel. And that's very, very interesting to me, because obviously we know the history with the Tower of Babel goes like right through. And isn't it interesting, Cambell, for the Tartarian truthers out there, that we've got this thing where we like glorify and decorate this Christmas tree and everyone brings them into their homes. And we now know that the Nephilim were the giant trees, or we think that the Nephilim were the giant trees, and that our realm got reset with the fall of those giant trees when they were cut down. So it's very interesting that they have brought in the Christmas tree as a symbol for this ritualistic event every year.
Yeah, the fall of Babel. And of course, that's kind of the tradition, isn't it? People go out and they cut down a tree.
Yep.
They don't grow a tree for it, and they go and they cut one down. So yeah, interesting. There's so many, and again, this is what we find is just that it's like they've grabbed a bit of, every sort of tradition they could find and whacked them all into one. So there's bits of everything in Christmas. Just bits of everything. Another one is the tree may represent the tree of life, right? In the center of the earth, holding up the dome, all that kind of stuff. And the star is Polaris. And of course, all of these could be true, or at least partly true. This is a thing. It's not a Christian festival. Let's put it that way.
And it's interesting because we either have the star at the top or we have an angel. Hello. The angels at the top of the giant trees. And isn't it interesting with the Tower of Babel, how it goes around like this, exactly like the tinsel we put, these colored golden tinsel wrapped around the tree, just looks exactly, and lights exactly like the pathways up to the Tower of Babel. I find that fascinating.
After Christmas, we've got to take it down. It's got to fall. So,
oh my God. So we're literally reenacting. We're reenacting every single year the Great Reset, the cutting down of the trees, the fallen angels, the celebrating the cutting down of the tree, and then the tearing it all down every year and then recreating it every year forward. We are in a ritual event with Christmas, everyone. Oh my God. It gets a bit trippy when you get into it. This FYI, we don't mean to destroy or ruin your family Christmas right now. We acknowledge that this is one of the biggest deceptions and illusions and programs known to our realm, and that is the case. But it doesn't take away from the fact that families and friends have taken this ritual celebration in innocence and come together in the spirit of love and generosity and family time. So just to separate those two elements, because of course organic consciousness is going to take the best out of a shitty situation, right? But we're here to talk about the programming, so buckle in.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is the thing, it started off as that, right? It started off as just, family gatherings and having a meal together and spending time. And so all the stuff we're going to talk about is all the crap they've put on top to distract us from what we're actually supposed to be doing, which is just connecting and spending time with each other.
Exactly. So I thought we might just dive in. I've got a few clips lined up that I thought I'll just play and we can talk about. And the very first one was about sort of where this concept of Saint Nick came from. And then I've got one grueling one about the elves and Grampus, which is pretty freaky. I mean, I always, I watched last year with our 9-year-old, I watched Polar Express, which is an animation, and it's got, of course, the biggest, awfulest known pedo in the world, Tom Hanks, but as the voiceover. But it was really trippy. I seriously saw it through the eyes of disclosure, and it was just this big, scary character, Santa Claus, Claus being at the end, and then all these little red minions rounding up all the children, and it just, and the colors and the hive mind mentality of the elves, and this is all in service to this sort of entity that puts all its attention on kids every year. It kind of creeped me out, yeah.
It is. It's like a lot of things, I mean, it's like with every single Disney movie ever made. You can watch them, in innocence, and they seem quite nice, but then when you actually know what they're saying and the symbolism, they're really not nice.
Yeah.
And this is what we find. It's all hidden. It's all they're going for our subconscious, and of course the connection with kids, can't be denied.
Yeah.
And the North Pole, which is another, I guess, shout to the Christmas tree being, the tree of life, the great tree in the center. Or is there, something else? Is it telling us something else? Because, because we grew up in Australia, and it can be confusing when you're a child in Australia because we don't have snow. And when it's Christmas, it's hot and everyone's at the beach.
Yeah.
But even in Australia, every single Christmas card, look at our hats, right? Snow. This is everything's about snow. which is weird. I mean, it's just crazy.
And snow
Especially in
domes.
Australia. So
the only dome gimmick that we have is a snow dome.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly right.
And isn't it interesting, Cambell?
So there's all these.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say all these ties, interesting connections.
Absolutely. I used to love snow domes. They were my freaking thing, man. I thought I didn't like. Now I understand. I was just obsessed with the dome concept, but I love those touristy snow domes. Anyway, it's really interesting because one really good point that's been made a few times now in several things I've watched is that when our parents basically program us to this Christmas concept, a few things happens as children. First of all, as we'll see in some of the clips I've got, toddlers, infants are terrified of Santa Claus. Like, they're always pretty freaking freaked out by Santa Claus, lots of crying. It takes a couple of years for the parents to program and indoctrinate them that Santa represents prosperity, or the idea that you're going to get gifts and it's a positive thing, positive by nature. But then what happens? Like, this like mythical, so the parents work all year really, really freaking hard to provide these prosperous gifts for their children and then get no credit. So the parents are stripped from any, like, this is not a gift I have worked all hard to give to my child and I love my child. It's like the parent gets taken out of the equation. It gets handed back to the state, to this Santa Claus or Satan Claus. And then the kids grow up with this magical idea of the North Pole is full of magic and joy and Christmas. And then they figure out that Santa Claus isn't real. And so then they have their first significant, for many children, their first significant moment of falling out of trust with their parents. That you lied to us. This is very significant to me, and you have lied to us. Therefore, when you tell me about God, I won't even believe you. So we put in this association. If Santa, the biggest mythical God creature for a child, is like a lie, then we have inevitably severed our trust relationship without even realizing to the creator, number one. And number two, like, from that point on, once we decide North Pole isn't real and Santa's not real, we never look at the North Pole again. We take our adult consciousness away from the North Pole.
That's for kids.
So it's a pretty clever programming tool.
Very multi-layered, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a good point about the whole Santa and taking kids down and giving them to strange old men and expecting them to be happy about it. And then when they cry, going, don't cry. Just, I mean, you have no idea who that person is. And the other thing is babies are hardwired to recognize faces.
Yeah.
Right. So you take them 1 year to Santa, then the next year, to them, you're thinking, oh, they're looking at the outfit. They're not. They know it's someone completely different.
Yeah.
So you're just confusing the crap out of the poor baby.
Yeah.
It's just a weird thing, and the same thing as the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy. Why do we do this? Why do we lie to our children and then not tell them the actual truth?
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy.
It
just shows you how And this is a question we all sort of go through at some point, is what is all this crap? Why? And I guess the thing is, we need to all hit that point and go, well, I'm not going to take it forward. Yeah, my parents went through it. They didn't know. I'm going to start doing something different. Let's make it more about time and or going and spending time, having a holiday every year or whatever.
Yeah.
Be the one to break that habit.
I mean, Cambell,
all this stuff, it can't be part of the new earth.
No, absolutely not. This is all gimmicky, ritualistic delusion and rubbish. So the other interesting thing is that, the way that we've just on the topic of skewering the trust issue between Santa and the creator. So like, you probably never thought about this, but like, think about how the creator or God, this mythical westernized God version has been represented. It's very similar to Santa. This very tall, big, old fatherly figure with quite often with a big white beard and white hair, and this like this archetype of that wise old man protector is how we've pitched God and how we've pitched Santa, and they both mirror each other, except one's dressed in red, one's dressed in white, and we've got this notion that they basically are entwined in the same sort of ritual. Like Christmas to the
Yeah,
Christians is a God ritual, although many now are seeing through that and are like rejecting it strongly. But, you know, we celebrate Christmas because it's meant to be the birth of Jesus, of Christ. And yet, like even in the Bible, it says that Christ was not born in winter, he was born in summer.
Yeah.
And of course, where he was born, it's for, so this whole, the story around it being a Christian celebration and then a sanctified Christmas celebration is all become one and the same. So yeah, you lie to your kids about Christmas, you basically give them a massive trust issue about God at the same time. So damn.
Exactly.
Damn.
What do they both do, right? What does God and Santa both do? They're both based on judgment and fear, right? They both judge you, right? Santa, you know, he judges the good kids and the bad kids. He's going to find out who's naughty and nice.
Yep.
And so that also puts the kids in fear. Oh, have I been good enough? It's exactly the same as religion.
God.
Oh, have I been good enough? Have I, you know, it's exactly right. That's a great comparison. They're so, that's the same thing. And then we get, you know, a good question is, who is this God then?
Yes. I mean, and plus they all live in their mythical realms. So the mythical heaven, the realms up high, and the mythical North Pole, the white realms beyond. Like both have this mythical quality, both entwined in the notion of doing miracles, going around the whole world with present down all the chimneys, versus like the miracles of you know, the God that we've been sold. Like there's so many comparisons. But look, I was going to start on a lesser, I'm just going to go straight to the intensest clip that I found on this topic. I'm just going to play it. It goes for a few minutes, but let's just check it out and see what we have here. So I'm going to screen share and let's do some deep diving.
All righty.
The deities Baal and Tammuz were worshipped by the ancient Moabites under the names Chemosh and Molech. We see that the names changed, but the worship remained identical. The ancient Moabites would celebrate a public child mass, a public child sacrifice during the winter solstice during December 25th, building up to this most anticipated time of year. All the parents would compile long wish lists that they would like to see in the next year. Then they would bring the infants that were born within that year to the idol Chemosh or Molech. The priest of Chemosh or Molech would stoke large fires inside of the hollow metal idol of the deity. The parent would bring their child screaming to the lap of this deity and lay their child in the lap of Molech, who wore the Phrygian cap that we see that Santa Claus wears to this day, the same cap that Mithra wore. And they would lay their screaming child in the arm of this deity while they begin to profess their long list of desires for the year. Now, today, we don't see that people are sacrificing their children to Molech, but we do see that they bring their screaming infants, their screaming children, and lay them into the lap of a complete stranger dressed up like a mighty one who they call Santa Claus. And this child is usually screaming their guts out because they're so afraid of this man, and they probably sense the darkness and the demonic forces that are at work. Children, infants, hate Santa Claus, and the proof is in the pictures. Now, of course, after a few years, the child will begin to love Santa Claus and look at Santa Claus as an all-supreme, all-wise, all-knowing, giving deity of prosperity, just as the ancient Moabites looked at Molech and Chemosh. He knows when you are sleeping and he knows when you are awake. In fact, he is all-knowing. He is immortal. He has no beginning and no end. He compiles a list of names on a scroll for the good and the bad children. He rewards the good children with gifts, and he punishes the bad children with lumps of coal reminiscent of the flames of Molech. He answers their prayers and their petitions. He flies on a magical chariot, just like Mithra, Sol Invictus, and Odin before him. In fact, he is a deity of prosperity, worshipped by the people of the world. And it's amazing that Christian parents would put this idol, this image, against the face of Yahuwah and teach their children that gifts come from this magical, all-knowing being, making him a deity. And they will lie to their children and tell them that he exists. And while they're young, they will believe it with all of their heart until finally they are crushed under the realization that their parents had tricked them. And now they will question everything that their parents will ever teach them about the scriptures because of this innocent white lie, as they say. Santa and his elves have a very dark past. Santa is identified as an elf in most of—
I'm just going to stop it there. Hang on, let me plug back in.
Wow. Interesting how we call them white lies, isn't it?
Ah, yes, indeed. So yeah, so that's sort of like, that was discussing what I was sort of talking about earlier with what this lying to our kids, which seems so innocent and so sweet and such an innocent thing, it actually corrupts their ability to trust their parents, their elders, their wisdom keepers, their law keepers, the true connection to their bloodline. You know, so it sets up a really, really nefarious deception there that has massively long roots in our programming.
Yeah. And of course, and you know, the favorite, you know, tool of these nefarious ones is to fracture the mind and to cause trauma.
And to fracture the family.
Is like the first trauma. Yeah, this is the first, you know, if there's nothing else going on, this is the first guaranteed trauma of a, you know, a baby's life, right, in the first year.
Yeah.
So
and fractures that trust in the family. And, you know, they love to break the family apart. Like, that's a massive part of their agenda. So, you know, it really does do that. And it really puts a lot of pressure on families. And I even was reading up on statistics that for like a majority of people in the Western world, they are in debt up to 6 months after Christmas because of Christmas. And that the average amount of presents that people people buy for Christmas is 36. So there's this, like, you know, massive rush to buy everyone, you know, presents, and you feel responsible and obliged, and like it's a real pressure point, and it really does foster the economic Babylonian society. And when we look at that, you know, it's not like the economic relationship we have with Christmas is in any way in service, because the shops all rise their prices. Everything gets dearer and dearer and dearer at Christmas time, putting you in more and more and more and more debt.
Yeah, and most of the stuff people get, they don't want or need, and a lot of it's just crap that ends up in the bin. And this is the thing, it's all what, just to be part of the group, right? Just to be like everyone else, right? I got more presents for my kid than you did, ha ha ha. But I'm in debt for the next 6 months. It's just stupid, right? So again, that's more worship to the system. Get in debt, right? The money system, worship the money system. Worship Babylon, worship their gods, the whole child thing, sacrifice.
Oh, how is that?
And this is the thing.
How's Moloch holding?
And, I mean, if you didn't, get that, it's pretty gross. But basically, it's a metal statue that they heat up with fire, so it's burning hot, and they go and place their children on it. So that they can get what they want for the next year. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's just like. And this is what they do, like our rituals were all about time and energy and you know, this kind of thing, and ceremony and altered consciousness, which we'll get into, which, you know, is dancing and song and also substances. But of course, every one of our rituals they've changed into blood sacrifice. Every single one of them.
All blood sacrifice. And when we look at the Yuletime log, this is a significant idea that there's always a fire burning, that you always go and find the largest log and you bring it in. And then we decorate this tree, and there's the fire is a big part of Christmas. Not here. Well, we feel fire because we're in Australia, but in Europe, gosh, fire is very significant to the process of Christmas. So that notion of Moloch being like the babies being sacrificed by the parents for prosperity for the year, you can see how that was just like just a slight twist in the script and the programming, and to the point where it was very normalized to sacrifice a baby in order to protect the rest of the family for the year to come. Like, you can see how that's been, and it was such just a slight twist of the script in the programming that now we shadow that, we mirror that. So this idea of presenting our children to these old men in these costumes, sitting on this throne, screaming and crying children, and it's like we take them up to sacrifice them in a shadowed version of this grim past. So yeah, I mean, it's a pretty strong, obvious connection once you see it,
It is, and like that video said, it's got nothing to do with Christianity really, and what they're saying it is. So why are supposed Christians, what are they doing to propagating the story of Santa?
Yeah, absolutely.
Instead of the actual story.
Yeah.
And it's all just become about consumerism again, praying to the god of consumerism and money and debt and all this kind of stuff. But Santa coming down the chimney as well, right? That represents the fire as well,
and the fall down,
the Yule logs and the fall down,
coming down the tower, down the tower,
down the tower. Nice. And then the word Yule, actually that comes from like the Frisians and from Friar from the Orelinda book, and again that's something that was good. It's been inverted. It was all about the eternal flame and stuff, and it's been turned into bloody log for Krampus.
Yeah, sacrificial flame.
Who's Krampus?
Flame. Yeah. Well, let's get into Krampus. So, this really did take an interesting twist as I started to look at the elves and this the cutesiness, and stripped all that off, and it starts to get pretty dark. So I'll do the same thing. I'll share my screen, and we will have a look now at the elves and Krampus. All right.
And just on a side note, Saint Nicholas, we started with Saint Nicholas. Saint Nick, another name for the devil is Old Nick. So there you go.
And hello, Santa, Satan, Saturn, Saturnanius. I mean, come on, Saturn, this is when we go fucking look at buildings, Cambell, and they're like, yeah, they ran a competition and it all got done in 1 year. I like this parroted information. It's the same with this Santa, Satan, Saturn. They barely even try to hide it, because if they hide it too much, it doesn't work. Their black magic doesn't work. So basically all we're doing right now is stripping the finest line, the finest little cover of a story tale of Christmas, and it's all there laying out for you. It's it's not hidden very hard at all. All right, I'll unplug. All right. Tell me if it works.
The Celts believe that the elves were
Santa,
all right,
and his elves have a very dark past. Santa is identified as an elf in most of the world. The Celts believe that the elves were witches and wizards, and they were identified by their pointy or Phrygian caps, and they were the teachers of the dark arts. Webster's dictionary describes an elf as a wandering spirit, a fairy, a hobgoblin, an imaginary being which our rude ancestors supposed to inhabit unfrequented places and in various ways to affect mankind. Also, an evil spirit or a devil. Satanist and New Age guru H.P. Blavatsky states that elves are disembodied spirits used in magic and sorcery and are the principal agents in seances. In places like Austria, Hungary, Germany, Italy, and elsewhere, Santa Claus is identified by his original name, which is Sinterklaas. And there are variations of Sinterklaas throughout Europe. Some variations have Sinterklaas riding on a magical flying goat. Other versions have him riding on a magical flying white horse. Either way, he is always accompanied by dark helpers. Usually they are referred to as the Krampus. And the Krampus is a half goat, half man demon that goes with Sinterklaas from house to house. In the 1500s, Sinterklaas became a kind old man who gave gifts and flew on his magical chariot and was accompanied by these dark helpers or blackjacks. He was Christianized as a saint by the name of Nicholas, supposedly based on the saint of Myra in Turkey, who was legendary. He would leave gifts under the sacred tree on his birthday if you had been good, but if you had not, his demons, his Krampuses, would either abduct you or beat you with sticks. Saint Nicholas supposedly captured Satan and called him by various names: the Krampus, Baalzebub, Zwartdite, or the Black Peter, and Neck Ruprecht. And these were just some of the names. In some of the cultures, Sinterklaas was dropped altogether, and the only remaining figure was the Krampus, which was kept and known as Weihnachtsmann, which means Santa Claus in the Germanic languages. In other words, in some cultures, Santa Claus is known to be
freaky image.
Satan himself, who is the Now let us see clips.
So shall we start thinking about the orphans and
Europe.
the children that were reset?
Some of these images may be disturbing.
Here we go, everyone. This is Christmas, the real Christmas. That looks a bit more like what we're talking about.
How much of it's just it's the Pope.
Yeah.
It's exactly
Yes. Fuck yeah.
exactly like the Pope.
Ich bin der heilige Nikolaus. Bringe Glück und Segen in dieses Haus. Die Braven, die werden heute belohnt.
So is Krampus who they've got chained up underneath the Vatican?
Maybe Krampus is where the black goo comes from. And of course, Krampus is all about eating the bad children. It's all about taking your children and eating them. Gosh, doesn't that sound familiar of the last 18 months of disclosure?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. God. Like, so this is how some people celebrate Christmas. And get right in the face of the kids to scare them. How nice.
This is the non-Coca-Cola version.
And that's another one, right? Coca-Cola,
Yeah.
red and white. And of course it used to have cocaine in it.
Yeah. Which will lead us into a nice conversation about psychedelics and magic mushrooms.
Yeah.
Origins of the Anglo-sized Santa Claus, who is Sinterklaas, and his elves, the goat-headed demons. And this is important to understand because the goat-headed mighty one is worshipped in the religion of Satanism and in pagan worship by the name Baphomet. He is also called the horned one, or the stag deity. Sometimes he is depicted with the horns of the goat, and sometimes he is depicted with the horns of the reindeer. The Second Vatican.
Pause there. So fuck. That's ruined Christmas for everyone. I'm so sorry. You're never going to be able to see Santa again. Same light. And like, it's my head in because
all the Santas are going to get yelled at the shopping centre.
I know. I mean, look, you know, all of my families, all of my loved ones, they have perpetuated the Christmas concept. It's so ingrained in our culture and society. It's very hard to, like, again, it's just like everything else we do in this sovereign moment in human history. Like, it's hard to stand in the face of your family and not take that apple juice, you know? It's going to be hard to stand in the face of your family and say, actually, Christmas is a satanic ritual that we should no longer be participating in. Like, these are all like sovereign steps we are all starting to make. And like, I mean, that's just one little video showing you much more accurately about what Santa, the elves represent in reality, in truth. But Cambell, like, let's talk about the timeline here, because Christmas gives us a freaking timeline.
Yeah, it should be 2,000 years. But when we look back, there's actually not much before 1840, what is it, 3? Christmas Carol was put out.
Yeah.
And this is a thing we see with a lot of authors, you know, so-called authors, and who knows if it's an author or a collection. But a lot came from London, you know. And they put out all these books explaining exactly what life was. You know, they were just sort of describing, you know, the life in that time and pretty much giving the script, right? And along with that came Christmas. So do we want to jump into that first, or do we want to jump into the
look, I mean, the
mushrooms that are in the background?
Charles Dickens is a really interesting one, because, you know, obviously I was looking at him because obviously A Christmas Carol is probably the most famous Christmas story, or, you know, famous Christmas movie from today's era. Like, basically it was the biggest and like most high impact Christmas programming tool, and it presented an idea of what Christmas was, and that it was all about you know, looking after the poor and being generous and kind of taking everyone in, and this loving sort of, and then, you know, then it described like the families sitting around, and this basically laid out the ritual. Christmas Carol laid out the ritual. Now, that was apparently written in 1843, which is interesting because we know that with the Tartarian reset, we didn't even start seeing people in the cities till the 1860s. Like, that's when we started to see population coming through in the photographs we've got. So, like, the timeline here is that this was written before people were reintroduced into society. So therefore, I'm going to assume that this book came out actually during one of the trade fairs, or during later than what it said it did. But we also know that Christmas gives us this extra 1,000 years of history, which isn't there.
It's not there. And, you know, just to go sideways, in Flamenco, his new chronology of the history of the world, he says that the New Testament actually happened before the Old Testament, and it was much closer. So all this stuff, you know, we just don't know. It's all been jumbled around so much. And like we've said, I mean, the whole red and white, we saw that clip, that Santa or Santa Claus looked like the Pope.
Yeah.
He even had a big, you know, the Pope's big cross, the staff thing. And we also saw that everything else related to Santa Claus had nothing to do with Christianity.
Yeah.
In fact, it had to do with the opposite, right? So this is the thing. What is it? What's been taken over? I mean, it is based on, you know, a solar event. So it's definitely, it's an energy time. But again, they're just trying to get us to put our good energy into their bad crap. But the red and white and Christmas, right? Christ, Mass, Christ. Chrism oil is where a lot of people say that word comes from, is from the chrism oil, and that's basically the oil that goes over your third eye and gives you enlightenment, much like maybe certain mushrooms might do, shall we say. So obviously the red and white, we all know oh gosh, how do you, I've forgotten the name of those mushrooms. Let's call them magic mushrooms. The red and white ones, the ones that they tell you are poisonous, don't eat them. This is another massive part of the whole Christmas ritual. So what are they called?
I thought they were toadstools. Let's have a look.
Toadstools? So are they toadstools?
Oh, I don't know.
Is that what the difference is?
I'm looking. Yeah.
And I've never seen a toad sitting on a toadstool.
No.
Maybe they need toad chairs. Who knows?
So yeah, I mean, like, okay, so this is another layer. So this came out. The first time I came across this idea of Christmas being basically a shamanic cult of the mushroom was in a documentary that came out. Gosh, I mean, I must have watched it 15 years ago now, and I loved it. It was, I can't even remember the name of it, but it was all about the magic mushroom, which is where we get the red and white from, and that, you know, people would get snowed in and then they'd go and deliver these magic mushrooms, and it was all like this like shamanic roots. It had shamanic roots, and that when they eventually consumed the magic mushroom, which only came out during this period, this Christmas period, people could like have shamanic adventures flying or connecting with you know, the creator, I guess.
Yeah, they used to go around and hunt the mushrooms and carry them around in sacks, and then apparently they would even, you know, the shamans who went and picked them, they would then deliver them to different families, and sometimes if the houses were snowed in, they would have to drop them down the chimney, and then they would hang them across the fireplace, either in sacks or on string, to dry them. And that's where we get the whole hanging of the Christmas stockings. Stockings, yeah.
I'm just
and so this is the whole thing, and there's even a book that's out, and it's called "Was Jesus a Mushroom?" For the based on the same thing. Is this all actually, you know, is the glory of God and enlightenment, is that actually found inside a mushroom?
And look,
what we're saying,
you know, look, if I actually Googled, I'm just going to bring it up, Christmas and mushrooms, and this is where, like, you can just so see, let me screen share, how predominant the mushroom has been in the ornaments and the things that we like connect to Christmas. The elves are always carrying mushrooms. The cards always have mushrooms on. You buy baubles, and I think the baubles are an evolved version of the mushroom that we put on the tree. And like all of this old school sort of Christmas paraphernalia all had representations of the mushroom in it. Like, it's everywhere. It represents Christmas all around the world.
And of course, it's associated with you know, so many things: fairies, dwarves, as we can see in these pictures, Smurfs, you know, all these, you know, mythical creatures, right? The kind of creatures that, I don't know, you might see if you're on mushrooms.
Exactly. And like, sorry, go on.
I was going to say that they apparently grow around the base of pine trees.
That's right.
Which is another link back to the pine tree. Christmas. And deer, reindeer eat them. They enjoy a bit of mushroom as well. And then of course they what do they do when they have mushrooms? They get high and fly, right?
Yeah, exactly. And look here at the picture of the mushroom.
And also,
and Santa. They look so similar. You can see how they've designed Santa's outfit based on the mushroom. Like, you can see it. There's a red top, there's a white rim, there's a white puffy beard, which we've both got on ours, the white beard.
Yeah,
you know,
we've only got one.
It's so
only got
similar.
one ball, but you can see that that's representing all the little dots all over it. It just is. It's even just looking at his coat, how he has that one big stripe down the middle, that's the stork. He's got his beard. Oh wow, look at the beard. Yeah, okay. Represents that bit underneath it.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's so, I mean,
that?
You can't argue with the relationship that's being formed here with
Symbology,
the Santa yeah. So of course then we get sort of sorry, go on.
I was going to say the reindeers. Just another thing is because when you eat the mushrooms, they've got a few toxins in them, and so it can be hard, and so people, you know, dry them and do different things to them. But apparently what they used to do is when a reindeer eats them, it takes all the toxins out.
Absolutely.
And they used to go and collect, well, let's say they used to eat the yellow snow, and that way they'd get the effects without any of the toxins in it. So yeah, again, you know, this mushroom bit is tied to the colors, to the reindeers, to the trees, to the chimneys, to, you know, just the same as Krampus. So it's so multi-layered, this story.
Because it's one of the most, I really truly believe, now we've done a little bit of a deep dive on it, that our ritual at Christmas time is a recreation of the reset. It's a recreation. Every year we all focus our attention on cutting down a tree, decorating it, starting the fire, bringing our children to Moloch, wanting our present list, and then taking down the Tower of Babylon. And this whole symbology goes on every year. It's like it jerks us into a reset, basically maintain the program. And sorry, go.
It's such a confusing time.
Yeah.
Talk to anyone around Christmas and they don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
It's so much like the reset. It just puts in confusion.
It does, because you don't know what day is it. You lose track of the days. You lose track of the time. Things open and things shut. You've got a lot of things you have to think about. You're constantly being kept on the run to get organized and get everything together and get everything bought and wrapped. And it's absolutely totally exhausting. And so they run us like mice on a treadmill, like all the way through December until this ritualistic event when everyone's so exhausted that Christmas happens. We do the ritual and then we all go get drunk. And the drinking is symbolic, I think, of the mushrooms, because when you look at mushrooms and look at this nefarious force and mind control, they always use psychedelics. MK Ultra has its roots in LSD and psychedelics. The mind control that we have all participated in has had its roots in drugs. It
does. For sure. And that's, I'll get drunk. And then I always used to wonder, you know, why Christmas and New Year's were so close together. It used to always confuse me. You know, everything else seems to be spaced out equally, but then suddenly we get this. And of course, my mother's birthday is on the 29th. So for me, it was like boom, boom, boom. But yeah, this is the thing. And of course, what is, you know, New Year's, right? But January. And of course, you know, Paul, from what the flock would tell us, that's the month of Janos, right? The gates, the doorway. So that they put us through this ritual of the reset, confuse us all, get us drunk before we know what's happening. We're going through the gateway of Janos into their newly created year, so we can repeat the cycle.
Yes, exactly. And we all participate in it. Like all of our energy is focused on it, whether you like it or not. Your energy is focused on it. All the media, all the shops, all your friends and family, all the kids, like it's you know, to the point where you all get time off work, you all get time out of school, like everything shuts down so you can participate and focus in on this massive ritual programmed event. It's massive. There's nothing like it. This is it. This is the massive one.
To the point where, you know, it's supposed to be a Christian ritual, but it's not. Every religion pretty much now does something to do with religion, with Christmas, you know.
Every one of them. And look at that picture there in front of you, Campbell. Doesn't it look like, if you look at Santa going down the chimney, look at that, going down the chimney. So
Richard, you know, going down, you know, the tunnel, I guess, as well. When you take a mushroom and you start trooping, it's like, well, you're going to the other world. And of course, you know, children so heavily represented. You know, it's such a child, you know, it really is a child focused ritual. It's all focused on the children.
Yes.
Right? All of it. It's all do it for the children, do it for the children, do it for the children, until they realize it's all bullshit. And then they can become one of us and do it for other children. And indoctrinate them.
Yeah, it feeds off their innocence. You know, like it's like their innocence becomes a massive battery. And that makes sense, right? Like we now know, thanks to last year's work, that like they have had a massive human trafficking for the last 300 years. Like they've, you know, they feed off the innocence of children. Literally, they feed off it, literally. And then we've got Christmas, where again, it's feeding off that innocence of children, that loosh of innocence of children. And then until the child has like seen through the fact that it's not real, it's just a fairy tale, and then dismiss God. Basically, I really feel like that's what they just dismiss God. And then they just like robotic through, and then they basically do the same for their kids and like replicate it for their kids and their kids and their kids. And we see that at Christmas time, we've got all sorts of mythical characters. So we bring in like the mushrooms. And so today we'll bring in the alcohol. We bring in like elves and dwarfs and talking reindeer and all these little mythical creatures, which is like the gateway. The snowman, that's right. And this notion of, and it's got this real nostalgic energetic, because then we have ritual music, don't we? Like Christmas carols are ritual music. Yeah. We all know them across the world. They all give us a very strong sense that this ritual's coming up. Play the Christmas carols, like, you know, we might as well be like, I mean, we could be doing any ritual right now. It's just like programmed friggin' sound waves, programmed frequency bombarding us.
Yep. And, you know, like that clip showed us, we don't like it when we're babies. We know it's wrong. And I've always felt it too. That's why I'm not a big Christmas person, because to me, it's always felt off. The energy's off. And this is why, because it's not what it's supposed to be. Yep. So yeah, we go and we traumatize the kids, you know, chuck them on these old men's laps, you know, representing, you know, just disgraceful rituals, traumatize them. And then when they find out it's all crap and all lies, they get traumatized again, which is kind of part of the programming, right? Because then it like puts this fracture in your mind where you don't want to go back. We bury it, you know, we don't want to, you know, really go and visit the mum and dad were lying to us all our lives. And so we bury it. And so when it comes our time to do it for our children, we don't go back and think about it. We don't want to go there. We just continue the ritual. We just continue. We'll just do what was done to us without thinking about it, because the truth might be it's too painful to go back and think about that, because that's a base of trauma.
Yeah, I mean, and you think about it in the classroom, right? You've got like, you know, kids who are like totally believe in Christmas, and then kids that like have like been told it's not real. And then the ones that believe in Christmas, suddenly what is their first emotion with that? They feel, when they realize that they've been lied to, they feel shame. They feel that first energetic of shame, and they want to hide it, like, oh my God, I was so fooled. I can't admit to believing in this. I've got to keep it inside myself. And therefore starts their like trauma process through like deception being, like the truth on deception being kept inward and not shared and not presented. Like, and like, keep my mouth shut. I don't want anyone to know I ever thought in that. That's crazy. Of course it's not real. Keep my mouth shut. And then there you go. Yet another tool.
And it's all about time when you're sort of, you know, 10 and you're sort of trying to, you know, become a teenager and you don't want to be a kid anymore. So you don't want to admit that you were like a stupid kid. But the problem is there's no year. It's not like, okay, now you're 10, now we'll tell you. And so what happens in school is everyone with older brothers and sisters who are a bit mean, they go and tell them when they're 5 or something. There's no Santa. And so then they go to school and you have this situation where half the kids believe it, half don't. And it's just not good. It's all for nothing. All for nothing. All for nothing. But to praise their evil God.
Absolutely. Have you
ever, guys, have a good Christmas.
Yeah, shit, man. Anyway, that's our job. So have you ever come across in your Tartarian photos any representation of a Christmas tree? Have you ever seen it in like any plazas?
In old, bit of a look. I mean, you see them in, you know, some setup shots, you know, from black and white, you know, maybe the late 1800s, early 1900s. But they're all setup shots, you know, they're all like, you know, the big tree in the square or Santa doing a pose. But as far as just seeing photos in the past of Christmas, which you would think would be a fairly highly represented in photography, right? Because that's when it looks nice, everyone's out, everyone's happy, got all the decorations, but no, that they don't seem to exist in the photographic record. They're not there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, and I see also, because obviously the World Trade Fairs were only like 200 years ago, and like, you know, we should have seen a massive representation in all the photography that we come across looking for these old world buildings of Christmas, like, because we're told that this thing has been going on since the birth of Jesus. We were told is like 2,000 years ago. So it should have been represented very strongly, but you never see it at all. And anyone out in the audience who wants to do some deep diving on the World Trade Fairs, I'd be very interested to see what you come across if you actually specifically go and look for Christmas, because all I could find was reference to the World Trade Fairs introducing the concept of a department store and this idea of gift giving. And like, it didn't specifically say Christmas, but the idea of, you know, the idea of buying things, and then here's the things that you're going to have to buy and purchase and all that stuff. But like, if we look at you know, again with Charles Dickens, like, he also wrote Oliver Twist. So a lot of his work talks about orphans. Yes, a lot of this work. And, you know, and his energetic with Christmas was all about like, take in the orphans, take in the poor children. You know, it's all about, he really did introduce the idea of, it's all about the poor children. It's all about the children, like this time, it's all about the children. He really did introduce that. And Cambell, did you know, this is really interesting, that the concept, so like when I was looking back through history and Christmas and the history around it, it came up with, you know, when we look through Tartarian medieval art, we get those grotesque imageries and artwork where people are really debaucherous and drunk, and there's sex everywhere, and, you know, genetically modified beasts and animals and humans, and it's very perverse and very sexual and very, like, you know, debaucherous. Well, apparently, like, Christmas through history was also a time period, I'd say before the Great Reset, if Christmas was even a thing, which I don't think it was, but whatever it was called Saturnalia as a festivation. It was basically a festival of Saturn. But it was known.
They treated it to ancient Greece.
It was known to be deeply debaucherous. Like, there was this one period where anyone could rise up, get very, very drunk, consume whatever was going, the drugs of mushrooms, and would rise up and go and storm the wealthy noble class and demand that they basically give them the best of everything they have. And apparently this went on and on and on over the years, which reminded me of the movie The Purge, which I have never seen because it's ghastly, but the idea.
Yeah. I've heard of it. Yeah, it's exactly the same thing.
Yeah,
it was one day a year.
Yeah.
Basically do what you want, the next day it's all forgotten.
Yes,
didn't happen.
So basically the Christmas celebration was this is what it represented, right? Until they reset it and made it, Charles Dickenized it.
That's another one, right? Getting off your tree,
getting off your tree, absolutely. And there's an interesting ritual with leaving milk and cookies for Santa. That's something we can look at for a second. But interestingly, this is a bit I wanted to get to, is that it was in this period after one of these Christmas debaucherous sort of riots from the peasants, so to speak, that they created, innovated, and initiated the very first police force. And so this very first police force came about as a response to the riot, the Christmas debauchery, and then from there,
people just going off their nuts.
Yeah, and it's so
which is kind of very Westworld as well.
Yeah. So there you go. So the police were created in a response to Christmas. Weird, hey.
All right, there you go. Oh my God, what a deep dive! And then just oh God. Milk and cookies, right?
Milk and cookies.
Name me an adult that wants milk and cookies, right? That's kids' food, right? And we know that when you leave that out, Dad always goes, "Oh, I better put a bit of scotch there for Santa." So it's not even for Santa.
Yeah.
It's for who?
Yeah.
Where's that come from, right? The kids at Krampus is cramming, pulling around with him. This is a thing.
Yeah.
Milk and cookies, right?
I mean, let's just off the top of our head think of all the things that we all consistently do at Christmas. We start with an Advent calendar. So that's this Advent counting down to the Christmas days, and we get rewarded every single day. So we start this process. We cut down a tree, or we buy a replica of a tree. We decorate it, and we do it in swirls, just like the Tower of Babylon. We cover it in red and white balls and gold. We either put a star or an angel at top. Then we go and we have to go and consume things. We have to go and buy things and wrap things and present things. Then we wheel our children out to Santa Mola and present our children to them, where the children ask for what they wish for Christmas. Then we hang up stockings everywhere, which is expected to get stuff in it at the end. And then we attend all these Christmas parties, these ritual celebrations. We're all coming together to sort of cheer on this mammoth event. Not much has happened here in the nation.
Drunk and do some things at the office party.
Yeah. And if we, at that point, you could actually stop and say, well, what would our Indigenous brothers and sisters be doing now, around the world? Do they have any relationship to this concept of all? And of course, the answer is no.
Nothing. It's so tied to consumerism too, like you said. We've got, and that's why everything's spread out. That's why it confused me that New Year's, that they gave away those few months, because it's Christmas. 3 months later, it's then it's Valentine's, isn't it? Then it's Easter, and everything's chunked out through the years to keep us going back to the bloody shops and spending money. But it's got nothing to do with anything. It's just consumerism. It's just feeding the beast, right? And who's the beast?
And we play this ritualistic music. We're all around the world, and all the shops and everywhere we go, we just hear this ritualistic music, which represents nostalgia and family and loving the children, bring our energy on the children. And and then we sort of
everyone tries to get home for Christmas, and so there's this. It's like this overlay of it's about family and stuff, but underneath it's really not. Everyone's running around stressing out, buying, trying to get the perfect food and the right presents and that, but thinking it's about family, when really, your kids would and your grandparents would rather just sit down and talk to you than have you, throw things at them and say, look what I bought. So we think we're doing the right thing, but again, we've been tricked, right? They've changed the ritual on us. And the office party, I was just thinking, the office party, how much is that like Saturnalia? And that was fed to us through how many movies and shows, right? The end of the year, you all just go and get smashed. You just go and root people you don't know about it all and go home and come back the next year and it's all forgotten. And it's like,
start again.
Start again. Go through the doors of Janus. And God.
So this
my God.
Yeah, I know, it's awful. And then so we do all this Christmas singing, and then we light candles, we put on the fire, or we represent it somehow. If we're in the southern hemisphere, we watch Christmas movies with snow and the Yuletime log, and then we
rebuild it back in.
Then we put out cookies and milk for Santa.
The food. We've got the turkey, the food, crackers.
The turkey. The bonbons.
Bonbons. Where bonbons come from?
Let's have a look. Good question.
Yeah.
Got to ask all these questions. You got to ask. History.
Got to be some little exploding thing.
Yeah.
With gifts inside it. Because that's another thing, right? You get kids to pull this, and it goes bang. And you scare the crap out of the poor kid. And then you go, don't worry, look, there's a little plastic piece of crap in here you can have. I remember a couple of times when I was growing up, my parents actually got good bonbons, and they actually had useful things in them. I think I got a little pocket knife or something, actual made of metal, and they had real things. And it's like, whoa, there's because most of the time it's literally a piece of just plastic in some shape. It's this is the other thing. What are we, with all the waste?
Yeah.
All the waste created
So
by
much
Christmas.
waste. Yep.
And we have this other thing where, you know, a small percentage of the world is sitting there getting their, you know, 100 presents each and then throwing out 2 tons of food at the end of it.
Yeah.
And the rest of the world doesn't have enough food to eat.
Yep.
You know.
So apparently the origin of the Christmas cracker from our perspective is it represents the Yule time log. So feeding the fire, and that's the spark, the crack. Yeah. And then you get this reward in the middle of it. Yeah. And it's shaped like a log. That's sort of the origin of the cracker. Basically, every single thing you do in regards to Christmas is a ritual, is a ritual to Satan. And it perpetuates next year's ritual to Satan. We give all of our energy. And here we are, standing here as Tartarian hunters, ripping our eyes from all the deception and the lies. And here we spent all year tearing apart the buildings. That's what we've done. And all year understanding we're in a set, a narrative, a movie. And, you know, and now we've entwined with our original lawkeepers, who FYI are the only ones who don't have fucking Christmas. They are not bound or tied to Christmas. And God, didn't they try? When they stole the generations, when they came and they stole our original people's generations, they put them all into Christian communities. They tried so hard to Christianize them and to bring these ideas of the Christian pagan rituals to them, the false ones. And yeah, I mean, like, it didn't work, did it? They definitely do not in any way, shape or form celebrate in any way. I have never seen an Indigenous representation of Christmas ever once.
Nah, never.
Yeah.
No, they're not interested. Got nothing to do with them. Just like, you know, and it's actually got nothing to do with us either.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just got indoctrinated, and they didn't. You know, their ancestors or their oh gosh, what do they call, like, grandparents or relatives didn't buy the lie. They refused, where ours did, and that's the difference. Like, that's the difference. And you know, that doesn't mean that, you know, our ancestors were better or worse. It just means that we may have been much more traumatized or whatever. You know, because we know that this whole thing is so nefarious what they've done. But at this point, we're here, right?
Yeah.
So all we can do is deal with what's here and what's now, and that is to understand we've been tricked and to make a choice. Where do you want to put your energy? Into, you know, the law of the sea and Krampus and all this, you know, child, you know, focused, you know, trauma-based crap, or do you want to stand in power and build something new and be done with this? Tell your kids the truth. Tell them. And we're not saying, you know, that Christmas is bad. Just make it about, make your rule. The rituals are.
It is all very bad. The love you feel.
You can reject it out. Yeah, you can reject it all and say, for us, you know, this day, maybe not call it Christmas, who knows? It's just about, you know, we go to the park and we hang out for all day. And that's what it should be. Or we get together, all the family, we have a meal and forget it's all the ritual stuff on top. You know, the presents and the hats and the bonbons and the crap and the stress, and forget all that.
I mean, imagine, you know,
it's like presents, right?
Yes.
They don't want your presents.
Yes.
They want your presents.
And everything is symbolic. So when you go and buy presents and wrap presents and give presents, that's all part of the ritual of this hijacking of your presents. It's like, it's literally saying over this ritual's present. This takeover's present. So Satan is present. Satan is present. That's what it says to me. Satan is present. And like, that's fucking trippy when you think about it like that. Doesn't it make you want to, like, rip out, like, satanic Christmas hats?
Yeah, I know. I'm sitting here with the bloody
fuck them. Like,
going, oh my God, what are we doing?
I know. Like, seriously.
I think I might have to have a ritual burning of this hat, I think, because it is. But when you understand what it represents, and we're all doing it, and we're, you know, pushing on our kids and little ones and stuff, and, you know, when you understand what it is, it's got to go, right? Do we want to be thinking people, or do we just want to be slaves following the bloody narrative that's clearly? And the other thing that we've you know, sort of, I think we just discovered it really in this podcast, was the whole it's about a yearly cycle, right? And about reliving the reset. And then we go through, and then we just relive the same year over and over and over. So to start going forward, we need to step out of that cycle, because that's clearly what it is. And so you got to hear first, right? That's a worldwide exclusive. All right, Christmas is a reset ritual.
Yeah, it's a reset ritual.
In the loop.
Yeah, it does. It's like a reset. It's a clock. It's our year. It symbolizes the end of and the beginning of a year cycle, and the whole world's energetic is focused on a satanic ritual every single year, whether you know it or not. That's what you're doing. Every single detail can be linked to a satanic ritual, and we do it at the end of every year. Everything stops, and at the beginning of every year. Like, it's actually awful when we think about it like this. And from the Tartaria perspective, holy shit. Like, so one is going to have to assume then that come Christmas next year, like it's going to be totally different. If this ascension process is taking place and the sovereigns are rising and we've got 12 more months, I would truly believe that this may be, imagine if this is the last Christmas in the realm as it currently stands. I mean, if the whole deception is falling, if all of the deception is falling, and people understand the length and the massive magnitude of the satanic culture that we live in, as soon as that's all realized, Christmas will fall like a motherfucker. And then wouldn't it be amazing, like, if we imagined what is the idea, like, what do we love about Christmas? Is the coming together and celebrating the Creator in love and with the bloodline, your bloodline. So it's like a new Christmas.
Like our quest.
Yeah,
it's like our quest that we were talking about, that's now going to be mid-year. You know, that's what it is, a coming together. To celebrate it and have ceremony. You know, ceremony without, maybe that's a better word, without the ritual, you know, because ritual is something that you kind of just do over and over and over again, just for no, you know, just I don't know why. But ceremony is just about energy and coming together. And another thing to point out, I just want to mention is, you know, all this consumerism and giving money. You know, what do you do when you go to church and they pass the plate around, right? Like, you give your money, your wealth, that's something that you've earned, because you're saying, I'm giving my power, my energy to you, because that's your God, right? The Christian God. So at Christmas, what are you doing? Who are you worshiping when you're handing over your dollars, right? The system and Krampus
exactly
and
the same.
Satan claws.
Exactly right. That's what we're saying about giving your $20 to the elders right now. It's all about intention. So right now, we, you know, like, how much money are in comparison, if you're giving 20 as an act of solidarity to our elders, like, how much money are you spending on Satan Christmas? Like, seriously, thousands of dollars of your intention every year goes to the maintaining and fueling and feeding and focusing on and supporting the intention of a great satanic reset every single year. I mean, we're so indoctrinated, we pass it on to our children and think, oh my God, poor dears, they're going to miss out if we tell them that. They're going to miss out if we don't. We're going to be that weird hippie family that doesn't celebrate Christmas, you know? Like, there are some, there are some cultures that don't celebrate Christmas very deliberately, and they're looked upon, they're frowned upon. The poor kids are like,
I think there's some Christian ones as well. Some Christian denominations.
So, Cambell.
But yeah, this is the thing. Some people saw it. Some people didn't. Yes, Kelly.
Yeah, Cambell. So, like, from a New Earth perspective, like, if we strip away all this satanic ritualized bullshit, which is, like, very serious, guys. It's very serious, like, being engaged with this. You know, we're at the point where we're seeing it fully now. Like, this is my first year, honestly, of truly looking at Christmas this way and really seeing it truly from the perspective of what we've learned about this year through Tartaria. Like, if we were to imagine a new earth version of what we've come, you know, like, take away the idea of Christmas, but it's the end of the year into a new year cycle. Like, what celebration is the new earth gonna, like, you know, instead of cutting trees down, imagine if it was about you know, planting trees, regeneration, doing, you know, spending, taking that time off work every year to spend 4 weeks with your family, regenerating your backyard, your homes, your community, like that unification, the act of giving and repairing and rebuilding, like dropping. Imagine, you know, I'd love to hear like new age carols, not Christmas carols, but new age sound in the right hertison, in the right frequency. You know,
this
like
is the thing. Carols, I'm sure that they started as chants, as actual frequency, and then they chop it up into lyrics so that you lose any power in there, and you just sit there, you know, repeating words, which is what programming. You know, it's like
absolutely,
they got us at every turn, those dastardly people.
And I haven't even.
So that's all right. We're seeing through the spell.
I haven't even looked at the words of Christmas carols. Have you even ever looked at like what we're actually
No, I
saying?
did. I've always wondered, like, Carol. Yeah, who's Carol and why does she sing so much? Why does she only come out at Christmas?
I know, because we're literally repeating these lyrics over and over and over again. Like, just choose one for me, Cambell. What's the most well-known one?
Deck the Halls.
Deck the Halls. All right, let's have a look at the lyrics.
Is it Lewis Carroll? Is it anything to do with Lewis Carroll? It's because they used to call it caroling, didn't they?
Yes, caroling.
Christmas caroling, like when you'd walk down the street.
So Deck the Halls with boughs of holly. All that is about is turning the blazing Yuletime log. It's all about the Yuletime log. Very simple. First Noel, the angel did say, was to certain poor shepherds in field as they lay, la 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 la, born in the king of, it's about wise men.
There's a lot of those that Jesus ones that they've clearly aren't 1,000 years or 2,000 years old.
Yep.
They've all been written in the last kind of 60 years and put out as, oh, it's all Christian.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's so interesting. We won't do it now live, but there's so many interesting deep dives you could take. Just, I mean, you think about carols and take away the word carols and put the word chant or ritual chant or satanic ceremony, or, you know, like it's no different. Like we're all putting our energy into it. Whether we're mindful or mindless about it, it doesn't make any difference. Like our intention's there.
Exactly.
Yep. Oh,
gosh. It's all about choice. Like everything's becoming about choice, you know, and it's up to us to make the choice, because if we don't, guess what happens? We find ourselves back here next year repeating the cycle, passing it on, and then you know, complaining that we're in the same place again, you know.
So how do we do it differently?
This is so yeah, I think, you know, we should all start trying to live in that space. So one thing definitely that we can do this year is consume less. And of course, when we do that, some of that money can go to our original elders. The link is below. Please give. And we can, I mean, seriously, give your money to changing the world forever. You know, does your kid really need, or your friend or whoever your partner need that, and we're talking, do they need that 5th or 6th present that they've never asked for, or would that money maybe be better off, you know, put somewhere else? Do you really need that extra carton of beer? You know, and this is like New Year's. Do we need to look at this ritual too? Because every year, what do? We go through the gates of Janos and enter the new year off our faces, not knowing where we are, waking up with hangovers, going, oh my God, not another day. I mean, it's probably not the best way to enter a new year, right? So we've really got to, how do we get these empowering? So I think definitely, you know, connection, coming together with people. And I think it needs to be your people. I don't think it necessarily needs to be your family, because, you know, we know Christmases can be pretty bad for some people. I think they have to be there and they go and they just fight, or they don't enjoy themselves. Look, if that's where you are, go and connect with your tribe, build because it's all about energy. I think it's all about building energy for the next year. And one thing I was going to say is, what did they used to do, you know, at Saturnalia, was it, to the bull statue, is that the parents would write down what they wanted. How about we write down what we can give
Yep.
for the next 12 months?
Yeah.
Come from a different perspective and make it all about energy and being prepared, making sure everyone's prepared instead of, grabbing, and that's a bit nefarious, right? Grabbing a poor orphan child and feeding them for one day. How about we just make sure that everyone's set up for the year?
Yeah.
If people need, their fences fixed, we all get in and fix a fence. If they need help sowing crops or doing whatever, that's what it should be about. And then we can all go into the new year happy, and we could have an amazing New Year's, ceremony, knowing that everything's taken care of. We've had our time, everything's good. Let's party, not get off our faces necessarily, but party, have a good time for a few days, and then let's go into the new year, and then that becomes the cycle.
Yeah.
Every year we're getting more prepared and we're making things better, compared to just doing the same old crap and worshipping and making ourselves poor and putting ourselves in debt and all these kind of crap and the stress that goes along with it, and getting fat from eating all the crap. And I mean really, what do we get out of Christmas? Like, what do we actually get out of Christmas that's good for us?
Like,
that's a good question.
Like a lot of us have kids around, and obviously the tree's already up, and this whole Christmas ritual has already begun.
Rip it down now, set it on fire.
Well, I mean, like, let's see what we can do with that. Like, the whole Christmas ritual has begun for all of us. And if you've got family and friends and children around, it's definitely begun. So being that it's already begun, and now that we have actually woken up to what Christmas really is, I would suggest that we actually come up with some ways in your lounge room, in your family group, that we can take back the ritual, so it's not going towards satanic purposes. And to me, there is some significant. So I think one of the best gifts that we could give everyone in our family right now is information on original law and sovereignty. Like, I don't know what that looks like yet, but actually I remember JCK put out a fantastic, and I'm going to ask for it, and we'll put it in the links below. And it was basically a declaration of sovereignty, and it went on for 3 pages, and you could read this out, and it was fantastic. And we're gonna put this link underneath this video, and I fully recommend you download this declaration of sovereignty and you put it in all the Christmas cards. And on Christmas Day, whether you stand alone or with whoever else, your friends or family who may or may not do it, but you say that declaration. Like, I think that's the strongest thing you could do to reverse the Christmas ritual, would be to declare your sovereignty over it. And that is to really understand and say to your creator, your God, that hears you mirrored back to itself, that you stand sovereign, that your intention and energy is aligned with truth, love, light, and the original creator, and that you step away from and do not give your or relinquish your power to this satanic ritual, that you call it out. I would say that is the strongest thing you can do this Christmas, is you call it out, and you do it on Christmas Day. Call this out, whether it's to yourself, whether it's in prayer, whether it's in meditation, whether it's to your family and friends. You get up there on the table and call it out. And like, I just think, like, how many,
you need a few drinks, have a few drinks.
But I mean, we've got to take it back. And next year,
we do.
Next year, I don't think there'll be Christmas. Yeah.
Another thing is, you could discuss, what are we going to do next year?
Exactly.
I mean, we definitely don't want to be cutting down trees. I mean, and this is how ridiculous it is, right? We get yelled at constantly about the, global warming and the nature, and we're so horrible, and we're deforesting the planet. And what do we do every year? We go and cut down as many trees as we can to appease their God.
Millions of them.
So let's not do that. I remember I went, when I was like 14 or something, I was like, this sucks. And I went and bought, because in WA we've got a tree, and it's called the native Christmas tree, and it flowers at Christmas time. And I thought, awesome. When I went, and I paid like $50 for this thing, and I had to like wait 2 months for it to come in, and I got it, and it was like this big. And so it didn't quite work. But things like that, I mean, and I just thought, why doesn't everyone have one of those in their garden? And at Christmas time, you don't need to decorate it. It decorates itself. You go out and have lunch under it, because we're in Australia, and
Yeah.
Things like that. Change it. You know, what can you do that's different, that's more empowering? Or is it, like Kelly said, is it going out and planting a tree?
Yeah.
You know, is it taking your kids out to see, you know, those that are struggling a bit more, and going with your children and giving these people useful things like food and things that will make their lives better, helping them, you know, little things like this. Because we're told it's all about making the world better, but clearly it's not. But maybe we can actually change it so it is about making the world better, and we can reverse that ritual. So every year, you know, we're in a cycle where we're just getting better and better, rather than.
I mean, it's like little steps. And, you know, don't forget, like, if you refer back to the Ringing Cedars of Russia series, like, they were pine trees. They, you know, they're sacred trees. The fact that we're basically farming the pine tree for Christmas every single year, we're farming these sacred consciousness, and literally millions of them get cut down every single year. It's really like, if we could hear the frequency coming out of these very precious trees, the pine trees, like pine anything is an elixir. Pine anything. It's so powerful for the human body and consciousness.
Turpentine comes from it, and of course pine needle tea is what, that's one of the big things that people are using to get rid of Mr. Jabberwocky. So it's an interesting tree to pick.
So, I mean, look, basically, guys, I would say my advice would be, which is what I'll be doing, because next year I will be changing this whole paradigm for my whole family. And this will be the last time these sort of satanic elements come in for me. But like starting this year, it's about starting those intentional small steps. 1, declare your sovereignty. On Christmas Day, you declare it. 2, you know, you reverse some of the rituals that are so obvious, you know, like forget putting elf on the shelf around the family, which is a big one. Like, you know, like that whole consciousness, like, you know, the whole giving, as opposed to like, so give life, give trees, give nature, you know, like, instead of consuming, make things. And if all of that's too hard, write something down. And if all of that's too hard, like, could you stand there on Christmas Day and give everyone you know a 7-minute hug as your presence? Could you do that? Because that in itself would be the most profound, powerful action. No consumption going on there, apart from a heartfelt gift of your energy to another. Like, there's so many ways. And I think, you know, starting from this year, I think Christmas next year will be a very, very, very different. I can't imagine how different, but it's going to be a very different scenario. So I guess this is a good year to say farewell to Christmas, my friends.
Yeah. We're going to need a new name, I think. We can't really, you know, I mean, we need some kind of ceremony to bring in the new year and farewell the old. But I don't think the massive Christ, because again, that's all based on magic mushrooms, really, as far as we can tell. So we probably don't, you know, even if you want to consume, you probably don't want to be promoting that to your kids. It's the most magic mushroom time of the year. So yeah.
So the ritual.
So this is the thing. Say goodbye and focus forward. What are we going to do? What's it going to become?
Yeah, I mean, the Declaration of Sovereignty is probably the most powerful element to set the intention clear that you have seen through the program, and you're no longer ignorantly or innocently giving your will and your permission for this ritual event, that you are no longer participating. On the surface of Christmas, I think this will be the last year all of us actually see Christmas through the ritualistic eyes, to know that it is like the majority of Christmas is being ritualized by people who no longer believe in the story of Christmas, but are continuing with the rituals and the trees and the carols and all that stuff. So basically it's about adults giving up the program, like, and then like this new generation coming in. And certainly at the new School of New Earth, there'll be no fucking bullshit about Christmas. The schools of New Earth will not be talking about this satanic ritual at all. It'll be gone from the curriculum.
And isn't it funny that, you know, it's the kids, right? The kids that are screaming, no, Santa's bad.
Yeah.
And we're going, no, it's good. So the kids know it's us. We've got to learn, I think, you know.
Yeah.
They're so smart, but it's even in the Bible, isn't it? Listen to the children.
Listen to the children. All right, buddy. Well,
so there you go, guys.
Yeah.
Wherever you are, we do wish you a merry end of year, Yuletide. Can we say that? Because Yule's a good word originally. But yeah, just yeah, I guess just have a more conscious Christmas.
Yeah, and that's true. That's a really good way of putting it. Very simple. Like, this Christmas, be conscious. This Christmas, be conscious and declare your sovereignty and your power over this ritualistic event. And know that we stand in alignment with the true creator and our elders and original law keepers as we move forward into this new earth paradigm. And 2022 is going to be the biggest year. The biggest year. Everything is going to change. Everything is going to change. Basically, this Christmas, say goodbye to the old world, my friends, because we're about to innovate the brand new earth.
Exactly. We got Santa falling off the tower there, so wave goodbye to Babylon.
Yep, Santa's going.
And I think there's one last
fallen.
thing that we're going to need to do. He's fallen, and there's one last thing I think we're going to need to do, Kel, before we
take our hats off.
Get through, and that's probably get rid of these.
Goodbye, Christmas.
We're back. Exactly. All right, guys. We love you. Thanks for spending some time with us. Yeah.